Hello again, it's Chris Taylor, and here I am reading Chapter 4, Part 2 of The House at Pooh Corner, in which it is shown that Tiggers can't climb trees. Although, if you remember from yesterday, he seems to be making quite a good fist of it at the moment. And if you remember, Roo had sat on Tigger's back and they were just going up the tree. And for the first 10 feet, Tigger said happily to himself, "Up we go!" And for the next 10 feet, he said, "I always said Tiggers could climb trees." And for the next 10 feet, he said, "Not that it's easy, mind you." And for the next 10 feet, he said, "Of course, there's the coming down too, backwards." And then he said, "Which will be difficult, unless one fell, when it would be easy." And at the word easy, the branch he was standing on broke suddenly, and he just managed to clutch at the one above him as he felt himself going, and then slowly he got his chin over it, and then one back paw, and then the other, until at last he was sitting on it, breathing very quickly, and wishing that he'd gone in for swimming instead. Roo climbed off and sat down next to him. "Oh, Tigger!" he said excitedly. "Are we at the top?" "No," said Tigger. "Are we going to the top?" "No," said Tigger. "Oh," said Roo rather sadly, and then he went on hopefully. "That was a lovely bit just now, when you pretended we were going to fall bump to the bottom and we didn't. Will you do that bit again?" "No," said Tigger. Roo was silent for a little while, and then he said, "Shall we eat our sandwiches, Tigger?" And Tigger said, "Yes, where are they?" And Roo said, "At the bottom of the tree." And Tigger said, "I don't think we'd better eat them just yet." So they didn't. By and by, Pooh and Piglet came along. Pooh was telling Piglet in a singing voice that it didn't seem to matter if he didn't get any fatter, and he didn't think he was getting any fatter what he did. And Piglet was wondering how long it would be before his haycorn came up. "Look, Pooh," said Piglet suddenly. "There's something in one of the pine trees." "So there is," said Pooh, looking up wonderingly. "There's an animal." There they are, looking up the pine tree. Piglet took Pooh's arm in case Pooh was frightened. "Is it one of the fiercer animals?" he said, looking the other way. Pooh nodded. "It's a jaguar," he said. "What do jaguars do?" asked Piglet, hoping that they wouldn't. "They hide in the branches of trees and drop on you as you go underneath," said Pooh. "Christopher Robin told me." "Perhaps we'd better have them go underneath, Pooh, in case he dropped and hurt himself." "They don't hurt themselves," said Pooh. "They're such very good droppers." Piglet still felt that to be underneath a very good dropper would be a mistake, and he was just going to hurry back for something which he'd forgotten when the jaguar called out to them. "Help! Help!" it called. "That's what jaguars always do," said Pooh, much interested. "They call 'help, help,' and then when you look up, they drop on you." And there's the jaguar, or is it Tigger, and Roo on the branch of the tree, calling for help. "I'm looking down," cried Piglet loudly, so as the jaguar shouldn't do the wrong thing by accident. Something very excited next to the jaguar heard him and squeaked, "Pooh and Piglet! Pooh and Piglet!" All of a sudden, Piglet felt that it was a much nicer day than he'd thought it was, all warm and sunny. "Pooh!" he cried. "I believe it's Tigger and Roo." "So it is," said Pooh. "And I thought it was a jaguar and another jaguar." "Hello, Roo," called Piglet. "What are you doing?" "We can't get down! We can't get down!" cried Roo. "Isn't it fun? Pooh, isn't it fun? Tigger and I are going to live in a tree like Al, and we're going to stay here forever and ever. And I can see Piglet's house. Piglet, I can see your house from here. Aren't we high? Aren't we high? Is Al's house as high as this?" How did you get there, Roo?" asked Piglet. "On Tigger's back. And Tiggers climb downwards because their tails get in the way. They can't climb downwards. They're only upwards. And Tigger forgot about that when we started, and he's only just remembered. So we got to stay here forever and ever unless we go higher." "What did you say, Tigger?" "Oh, Tigger says if we go higher we shan't be able to see Piglet's house so well. So we're going to stop here." "Piglet," said Pooh solemnly when he'd heard all this, "what shall we do?" And he began to eat Tigger's sandwiches. "Are they stuck?" asked Piglet anxiously. Pooh nodded. "Couldn't you climb up to them?" "I might, Piglet, and I might bring Roo down on my back, but I couldn't bring Tigger down, so we must think of something else." And in a thoughtful way, he began to eat Roo's sandwiches too. Whether he would have thought of anything before he'd finished the last sandwich, I don't know, but he had just got to the last but one when there was a crackling in the bracken and Christopher Robin and Eeyore came strolling along together. "I shouldn't be surprised if it hailed a good deal tomorrow," Eeyore was saying. "Blizzards and what not. Being fine today doesn't mean anything. It has no what's that word? Well, it has none of that. It's just a small piece of weather." "There's Pooh," said Christopher Robin, who didn't much mind what it did tomorrow as long as he was out in it. "Hello, Pooh." "It's Christopher Robin," said Piglet. "He'll know what to do." They hurried up to him. "Oh, Christopher Robin," began Pooh. "And Eeyore," said Eeyore. "Tigger and Roo are right up the 6 pine trees and they can't get down. And I was only just saying," put in Piglet, that if only Christopher Robin and Eeyore, if only you were here, then we could think of something to do." Christopher Robin looked up at Tigger and Roo and tried to think of something. "I thought," said Piglet earnestly, "that if Eeyore stood at the bottom of the tree, and if Pooh stood on Eeyore's back, and if I stood on Pooh's shoulders, and if Eeyore's back suddenly snapped, then we would all laugh, ha ha." "Amusing in a quiet way," said Eeyore, "but not really helpful." "Well," said Piglet meekly, "I thought—" "Would it break your back, Eeyore?" asked Pooh, very much surprised. "That's what would be so interesting, Pooh, not being quite sure till afterwards." Pooh said, "Oh." They all began to think again. "I've got an idea!" cried Christopher Robin suddenly. "Now listen to this, Piglet," said Eeyore, "and then you'll know what we're trying to do. I'll take off my tunic. We'll each hold a corner, and then Roo and Tigger can jump into it, and it'll be all soft and bouncy for them, and they won't hurt themselves." "Getting Tigger down," said Eeyore, "and not hurting anybody. Keep those 2 ideas in your head, Piglet, and you'll be all right." But Piglet wasn't listening. He was so agog at the thought of seeing Christopher Robin's blue braces again. He'd only seen them once before, when he was much younger, and, being a little overexcited by them, had to go to bed half an hour earlier than usual. And he'd always wondered since if they were really as blue and as bracing as he had thought them. So when Christopher Robin took his tunic off, and they were, he felt quite friendly to Eeyore again, and held the corner of the tunic next to him and smiled happily at him, and Eeyore whispered back, "I'm not saying there won't be an accident now, mind you. No funny things, accidents. You'll never have them till you're having them." When Roo understood what he had to do, he was wildly excited and cried out, "Tigger! Tigger! We're going to jump! Look at me jumping, Tigger! Like flying! My jumping will be! Can Tiggers do it?" And he squeaked out, "I'm coming, Christopher Robin!" And he jumped straight into the middle of the tunic, and he was going so fast that he bounced up again almost as high as where he was before, and went on bouncing and saying "Oh!" for quite a long time, and then at last he stopped and said, "Oh, lovely!" and they put him on the ground. "Come on, Tigger," he called out. "It's easy." But Tigger was holding on to the branch and saying to himself, "It's all very well for jumping animals like kangaroos, but it's quite different for swimming animals like Tiggers." And he thought of himself floating on his back down a river, or striking out from one island to another, and he felt that that was really the life for a Tigger. "Come along," called Christopher Robin. "You'll be all right." "Just wait a moment," said Tigger nervously. "Small piece of bark in my eye," and he moved slowly along his branch. "Come on, it's easy," squeaked Roo, and suddenly Tigger found how easy it was. "Ow!" he shouted as the tree flew past him. "Look out!" cried Christopher Robin to the others. There was a crash and a tearing noise and a confused heap of everybody on the ground. Christopher Robin and Pooh and Piglet picked themselves up first, and then they picked Tigger up, and underneath everybody else was Eeyore. "Oh, Eeyore," cried Christopher Robin, "are you hurt?" And he felt him rather anxiously and dusted him and helped him to stand up again. There's Eeyore, there's Tigger, flying, and there's Christopher Robin and Pooh and Eeyore and Piglet holding the tunic ready for him to land in, and there's Roo watching excitedly. Eeyore said nothing for a long time, and then he said, "Is Tigger there?" Tigger was there, feeling bouncy again already. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "Tigger's here." "Well, just thank him for me," said Eeyore. The end. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. More next week.